This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidoyuat. It's Wednesday, September 25th. This is Africa 54. U.S. President Donald Trump takes a strong anti-globalist stance at the UNGA in New York. Britain's Prince Harry and wife Meghan Markle meet with Archbishop Desmond Tutu during their South Africa visit. And a closer look at cryptocurrency and blockchain technology on the continent. U.S. President Donald Trump delivered his scheduled speech at the United Nations General Assembly in New York Tuesday, where he gave what some see as an anti-globalist message while calling for religious freedom worldwide. Trump also blasted Iran over its alleged recent attacks on Saudi oil facilities, but indicated he is open to talks with Tehran. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has more.
It's President Trump's third speech at the United Nations, and this is his main message to world leaders.
The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots.
Also part of his message, his America First doctrine and his criticism of China over the ongoing tariff war.
I will not accept a bad deal for the American people.
Trump also stressed issues of gender equality, an initiative led by his daughter Ivanka, and religious freedom, his administration's focus at UNGA this year.
Americans will never fire or tire in our effort to defend and promote freedom of worship and religion.
A contrast to his 2018 speech.
The United States will not tell you how to live or work or worship.
A difference noted by Richard Gowan, the UN director at the International Crisis Group.
He likes talking about sovereignty because he wants to defend American sovereignty, but he also likes talking about religious issues because that does play very well with a lot of Republican voters. And I don't think he's that worried about the contradiction.
Trump spent a substantial amount of time in his more than 30-minute speech on Iran. The U.S. accuses Tehran of recent attacks on a Saudi oil facility. But despite the sharp words, Trump is sticking to sanctions and showing restraint.
It is time for Iran's leaders to finally put the Iranian people first. America is ready to embrace friendship with all who genuinely seek peace and respect.
France, Germany, and the UK have joined the U.S. in blaming Iran for the Saudi attacks. The Europeans have called on Iran to act more responsibly in line with terms of the nuclear deal, which Trump has abandoned.
The general view in the UN is that the key to stabilizing the situation is for the US to return to the Iranian nuclear deal. If President Trump is not ready to return to the Iranian deal, then it is very unlikely that even close allies, like the Europeans, are going to support strong actions at the UN against the Iranians.
Iranian President Hassan Rouhani is scheduled to give his speech on Wednesday, in which he is expected to present a security plan for the Gulf region. Rouhani and Trump are both saying they don't intend to meet, but neither man has completely ruled it out. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News at the White House.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights is expected to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Sudanese foreign minister to open a UN human rights office in Sudan. For more on this story, VOA UN correspondent Margaret Bishia joins us live from New York. Hello, Margaret. This is a big step forward given the political heat Sudan has experienced lately. Fill us in on this.
Yeah, the signing took place about an hour ago here in New York. The foreign minister, who is a woman, Asma Mohammed Abdallah, she signed the memo of understanding with the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, and they're going to open an office in Khartoum and 4 field offices in Blue Nile, in Kordofan, Southern Kordofan, East Sudan, and Darfur. And they will be working on issues such as combating inequality, legal and institutional reform, transitional justice, these sorts of things. And Michelle Bachelet, the High Commissioner, said that The road ahead for Sudan promises to be full of challenges, but we're ready to assist to ensure that human rights are included in the transition in Sudan. So basically, the UN wants to be sure that they can build on recent gains in Sudan and make them irreversible. They want them to be in place so that there'll be no backsliding on human rights with the new government that's coming in.
Now, Margaret, we also understand that there's big news coming for the support for the G5 Sahel force. What more do you know briefly?
Well, there'll be a high-level meeting on the issue this afternoon here at the United Nations. The French foreign minister, the presidents of Mali and Burkina Faso, the UN Secretary General, they're trying to generate more support for this force. It's very important, diplomats say, that the G5 force is a success, because here at the United Nations, they're always talking about African solutions for African problems. And this force is really seen as that the embodiment of that sort of slogan. So it really needs to succeed. They're afraid it could fail. They don't want it to. The UN has 16,000 troops in Mali with MINUSMA. The French have about 4,500 troops supporting them. So they want to just reaffirm international support for this mission. They're worried about Burkina Faso. They're worried about terrorism expanding out of the Sahel region. So there are a lot of concerns, and they want to highlight these issues at this meeting today.
Margaret, thank you so much for your insight on this. We'll touch base tomorrow. VOA correspondent, VOA UN correspondent Margaret Bishia there for us in New York. Now, defying a high court order, Zimbabwe police on Tuesday blocked an activist doctor from leaving a Harare medical facility to seek care in South Africa. Attorneys for Peter Magombei told VOA's Zimbabwe service they headed back to court in the capital Tuesday evening. Earlier in the day, a high court judge ruled that Magombei, recovering from an alleged abduction, was entitled to leave the country since he is not under arrest. Magombei's representatives said he needed to travel to be examined for possible physical and psychological harm. He was reportedly abducted on September 14 and resurfaced 5 days later outside the city, saying he was unable to recall what had happened to him. VOA's Zimbabwe service was unable to reach the police or health minister for comment Tuesday. At least 52 people critical of Zimbabwe's government have gone missing so far this year, according to Human Rights Watch. Zimbabwe's capital has closed its water plant after it failed to raise money to pay for imported treatment chemicals, leaving citizens to rely on open and treated water sources. Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare.
This 38-year-old mother of three says for months now she has been relying on open water sources for her house chores. City of Harare blames its erratic water supplies on drought.
Authorities have never informed us about what is causing these water cuts. We just see our taps without water. We go to the streams to fetch water for bathing. Sometimes you end up using it for cooking since you don't have any clean water. Boreholes are few, plus there are long queues, so the little clean water we have, we use it for drinking.
On Monday, the city of Harare announced that it had stopped purifying water because it does not have the funds to import water treatment chemicals.
On our side, our budget for water is now exhausted. We have approached government to apprise government of the need to support the water sector through declaring it an emergency so that funding partners can also come on board and assist the city in the long-term projects.
For years now, rights groups have accused the government of prioritizing less important issues such as foreign trips and buying luxury vehicles for senior officials, neglecting issues like health, education, and water supplies. Community Water Alliance comments on the closure of Harare's water plant.
A big surprise. It's a metropolitan disaster. There's no seriousness, basically, because you cannot expect that you have a tier of government making an announcement that we are producing basically zero. We are not giving anything. That's what they are saying when it comes to water. So seriousness is basically at zero at the moment from central government and to the lower tier.
In 2008, a lack of water treatment chemicals was blamed for 5,000 deaths from cholera. The waterborne disease was only contained after USAID, UN agencies, and the European Union intervened. Now, with the water plant closed in Harare, Kufa Kunesu fears that might happen again. Columbus Mavungam for VOA News, Harare.
North Korea has quietly reopened a construction firm in Senegal in an apparent violation of United Nations sanctions targeting Pyongyang's nuclear programs. VOA Korean service has confirmed at least 31 North Koreans are working at the firm, according to interviews and official documents reviewed by VOA Korean Ham Ji-ha. Alzuma Compaore of VOA French spoke to the reporter.
We found several evidences that North Koreans are still in Senegal. So first, we found their lodging compound. So we saw about 10 North Korean people were living there and commute from that lodging compound. And we also found several workers at the construction site. I was able to speak to 2 North Korean workers there. And they told me that they're from Pyongyang. Or about 31 North Korean construction workers in Dakar, Senegal, the capital city of Senegal. So we found out that they were they've been hired by this company called Corman Construction. And we found out that, Corman Construction is actually they just changed the name from Mansudae Overseas Project Group. So Mansudae is a designated entity by the United Nations Security Council and the U.S. Treasury Department, meaning that all the UN member states cannot have Mansudae or similar business in their own countries. The fact is that Corman Construction is now a registered business in Senegal, and we have the registration issued by the Senegalese government.
This company, Mansudae Overseas Project, is a pretty large company. Can you tell us more about the type of work that it does on the ground there in Senegal?
Yeah, so Mansudae has built a very big bronze statue there. It's very famous one. The
monument of the Renaissance, African Renaissance.
Right, the monument of African Renaissance that was built in 2010, and some people say that cost about like $20 million, but we discovered that it actually cost about like $50 million. So it's a huge amount of money. Some believe that this money goes straight to Pyongyang and helped to develop nuclear weapons.
So when you met the workers on the ground there, do they ever seem to be aware of the situation that they're not supposed to be living on the ground there under the new rule, the new sanctions?
We found out that these workers weren't allowed to speak to anyone outside of their lodging compound or their construction site. So they were not really aware of the global issue. For example, the sanctions violations, all kind of that. I don't think they are aware of that they are violating. Foreign workers of North Korea issue is very global issue that many governments have been focused on, so including the United States, because it's not only it has a WMD, weapons of mass destruction issue, it also has human rights violation issues too, because their working conditions were very poor. They make $120 a month in Senegal.
We understand that by the end of 2019, all governments or member states of the UN need to make sure that all foreign, North Korean workers depart from the country. Is that even something that you feel like Senegal is going to be able to do?
Not only they have to expel all the workers by the end of this year, they could not add any more new workers. But we found out that, as I told you, about 8 workers were added this year. Renewing working permit is not also allowed by the resolutions.
You're watching Africa 54. We'll be right back.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Comic book aficionados turned out in droves in Johannesburg, South Africa, to appreciate, celebrate, perform, compete, and share their love of comic book culture at the second edition of Comic-Con Africa. Comic-Con's arrival on the continent last year was described as long overdue, and organizers say the event has significantly scaled up since then. The event attracts thousands of cosplay, comic books, anime, manga, films, series, and gaming fans. Comic-Con Africa is also a chance for people to learn more about locally produced comics and occupy spaces typically dominated by Hollywood. Next up, a single yoga class is bringing together 60 people from different races, nationalities, and religions in support of the rights of the migrant community in Lebanon. The 2-hour event is organized by One Yoga to raise funds for Lebanon's anti-racism movement, which runs a center for migrant workers. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have blamed the kafala, or sponsorship system, used in many parts of the Middle East for the abuse of migrant workers. A migrant worker dies from non-natural causes every week in Lebanon, Human Rights Watch says. Ethiopians make up the biggest group of migrant workers in Lebanon, according to government data. And that's what's trending today.
Democratic Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi announced a formal impeachment inquiry into U.S. President Donald Trump Tuesday amid allegations he sought a foreign government's help into his 2020 re-election bid. 173 House Democrats are now calling for an impeachment inquiry following whistleblower allegations. President Trump pressured the Ukrainian president to investigate political rival Joe Biden's family. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has the latest.
A turning point for the Trump presidency.
The House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella of impeachment inquiry. The president must be held accountable. No one is above the law.
Trump now one step closer to becoming the 4th U.S. president to face impeachment proceedings. He did not deny withholding congressionally approved aid to Ukraine.
Those funds were paid. They were fully paid. But my complaint has always been, and I withhold again, and I'll continue to withhold until such time as Europe and other nations contribute to Ukraine, because they're not doing it.
The whistleblower revelation set off a cascade of House Democrats announcing support for impeachment.
We cannot delay. We must not wait. Now is the time to act.
Their frustration built to a breaking point after months of debate amongst Democrats if the president's actions were impeachable offenses.
There have been a lot of egregious acts, but there's nothing that compares to this. I mean, this is the president basically saying, yes, I colluded, what are you going to do about it?
Well, Trump's Capitol Hill allies said Pelosi's move was just a matter of words.
She cannot unilaterally decide we're in an impeachment inquiry. What she said today made no difference of what's been going on.
Senate Republicans did join Democrats in a vote pushing for the release of the whistleblower complaint. Needed transparency said the focus of Trump's alleged attempt to involve a foreign power in the 2020 election.
If the president does not comply with such a request from the Congress, he continues to obstruct Congress and flout the law, Donald Trump will leave Congress, in my view, no choice but to initiate impeachment. That would be a tragedy, but a tragedy of his own making.
A national security crisis, House Democrats said, should concern all Americans, even though the majority do not support impeachment.
I don't think a president should withhold aid from a country to get dirt on his opponents. That is unconstitutional, and this is our opportunity to make that very clear.
Congressional intelligence panels are set to hear from the whistleblower, who will be testifying later this week as the House moves forward with its investigations. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Capitol Hill.
Britain's Prince Harry and his wife Meghan and their 4-month-old son met with retired Archbishop Desmond Tutu in Cape Town on Wednesday, the third day of their African tour. Serena Chaudhry reports.
Britain's Prince Harry and his wife Meghan received a warm welcome in Cape Town on Wednesday as they met retired Archbishop Desmond Tutu and his daughter Thandeka. Also in tow with the couple, 4-month-old Archie on his first royal engagement. Tutu, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate and a veteran of South Africa's anti-apartheid movement, appeared delighted to meet the young baby. The 87-year-old, who's been battling prostate cancer for years, has largely withdrawn from public life. He and his wife Leah had earlier said they regarded the chance to meet the Duke and Duchess of Sussex as a rare privilege and honour. The engagement took place at the Old Granary, one of the oldest buildings in Cape Town, where the Clerics Charitable Foundation is based. The royals are on the third day of their African visit, their first overseas tour since the birth of Archie, their first child.
Serena Chaudhry of Reuters reporting. It's time for our tech segment, and joining us now is our technology reporter, Paul Ndiho. Paul.
Thank you, Esther. Social media trends show an increased interest in blockchain and cryptocurrencies, especially on the African continent. Joining me to talk about the future of blockchain and cryptocurrency in Africa is Mr. Musi Haile, the founder and CEO of Moya Technologies, a consulting firm based here in the Washington, D.C. area. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Right off the bat, what is a blockchain?
So blockchain is mainly famous by cryptocurrency, but we'll get to that. Blockchain is, the concept of it is creating a chain of events. So if you take a dollar, and if you go back and check where that dollar has been today, there was no way to figure it out. So what happens in a blockchain is you can go all the way back to the day that tree was planted, the tree was harvested, processed into paper, and then distributed through a bank. So every aspects of that process is documented, right? So the idea here is you can trace back all the activities that that dollar has been going through its own life cycle and validate that. The next step is, okay, what is cryptocurrency, right? So cryptocurrency is an output of that blockchain aspects of it. So the first digital entry is called a block, and everything that goes behind this is a chain. So you have blockchain. Now, cryptocurrency is a digital money. So you have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, you have Litecoin, all the different coins. When it is created, you have multiple systems that validate that digital currency took place or that transaction took place. And that's how cryptocurrency is created. Today, in Africa, Bitcoin is known for a lot of people to use it, not to open up new businesses, but it's more from kind of how do I get money out of it. And as the market goes up and down, the value of that crypto goes down, and then the value of your money goes down as well.
Earlier when we were talking, we talked about how this could actually have a significant maybe impact on the continent. How big is it, especially in countries where they're beginning to use this cryptocurrency?
It is big. If you take Kenya, for example, in 2017, 2018, there were about 1 billion $1.6 billion in cryptocurrency was exchanged.
Interesting.
So it's huge, not from the government perspective, but from the citizens of Kenya perspective, right? And then if you take it into Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is using Bitcoin for exchanges for daily activities. And then there's a lot of activity going on in Ghana and in Nigeria and Senegal and different places. And there are African countries that are looking into creating their own tokens or their own cryptocurrency to their citizens. What I see with cryptocurrency is the ability to do cross-border trading or payment perspective. So if someone was going to buy a coffee from Kenya and send it to Nigeria, there's no way a shilling and naira could be exchanged. But from a cryptocurrency perspective, you would be able to, it wouldn't matter if you have a shilling, if you already have a naira, that cryptocurrency would be able to make that transaction happen, and then the banks would be able to settle that money on their own.
Are you suggesting that this could be the future currency for the African continent?
It will be the future currency of the African continent, but it needs to be tied to an asset, or it needs to be pegged against a dollar or a euro. It has to have some type of backing. You can't just create it out of a vacuum like it is today. There has to be some type of tangible assets that could be tied to. So, the value of that currency can go up and the value of that currency can go down.
Earlier we were talking about Libra. For example, what kind of impact has Libra had? You talked about how Apple, Amazon, and Google are also trying to come up with their own cryptocurrencies.
So there are different type of companies trying to come up with their own currencies. Libra more is focused towards consumer side of the house, and there are other companies like Marco Polo, and then there's R3, there's WorldWire, that's more towards trade financing kind of side of the house, whereas Libra is more citizens like you and me be able to go into a local shop, be able to buy and sell our goods. The issue that I see with a lot of these large companies, tech companies coming out with their own token is there are other issues within those companies. They need to be separated from the actual headquarters or the main company. They have to be a separate entity in order for that to operate. But I think Libra has a good way. It's going to take time for governments to approve it and people start to use it.
Very briefly, how can I lay my hands on a blockchain or a Bitcoin?
Well, today, in order to buy a cryptocurrency, you go into an exchange. There are different exchanges in the world that you can go buy from, or you can buy it online as well. You would need a credit card, and you would need to provide either a passport or a driver license ID to be able to purchase, because there's a customer requirement.
Thank you, sir. That was Mr. Mosi Haley, founder and CEO of Moya Technologies, based here in Washington, D.C. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, Paul. Be sure to join Paul Ndiho each Wednesday for another tech report. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.